Listen. The world is loud. People shout, they warn, they negotiate. You will nod. You move silently. You act without words. The consequences of your decisions speak for you. No explanations, no threats, no noise. Just the impact of your actions landing where they must, and everyone else scrambling to understand why. Fear is not announced, it is felt. Power does not ask for attention, it demands it silently. You will learn to operate without warning, without chatter, without hesitation. And when the world finally catches up, it will already be too late. Silence is not empty, it is loaded. The world expects noise, warnings, explanations, threats. You will not give them that. You will let the room breathe in your presence, feel the weight of your gaze, the steadiness of your posture. People will wonder, they will anticipate, they will fear. Do not confuse silence with weakness. Weak men speak because they cannot hold themselves still. Strong men speak only when the moment demands it. You will speak rarely. You will speak with precision. Every word you utter will carry weight. Every syllable will land like a hammer on iron. But until that moment, your silence is the weapon. It keeps people guessing. It forces them to reveal their weaknesses. It builds tension in your favor. They cannot predict you, and unpredictability breeds fear. Observe how people react to silence. Some will rush to fill it. Some will stumble over their own words. Some will try to impress, to persuade, to warn. Let them. Their reactions reveal everything. Their intentions, their doubts, their fears. You do not need to speak. You do not need to justify. You do not need to explain. You are already in control. The silence communicates authority. The stillness communicates dominance. And the world listens, whether it knows it or not. Understand that the threat of action is louder than the promise of words. Threats are empty until they are realized. Warnings are forgotten once delivered. But consequences? Consequences are permanent. Your silence lets them imagine the worst, and imagination is more terrifying than reality. You control the narrative without opening your mouth. People fear not what you say, they fear what you might do. That is the power of silence. That is the weapon of the decisive. That is how you dominate without uttering a single word. Predictability is weakness. The world respects those who move unpredictably. You do not follow schedules. You do not announce your next step. You act when the moment is yours, not when others expect it. People plan, they prepare, they calculate, but you operate outside their timelines. That is how dominance is established. That is how fear becomes your ally. They never see you coming, and by the time they realize, it is already too late. Do not signal your intentions. Do not give them a chance to anticipate. Silence, posture, measured movement. These are your tools. You do not justify. You do not explain. Every action must land without warning, leaving them scrambling to interpret, reacting to consequences they never expected. That is how power manifests. Your unpredictability becomes a shield. It forces others to second-guess themselves, to hesitate, to stumble. And hesitation is the birth of opportunity. People fear what they cannot predict. Let them. Do not correct their assumptions. Do not clarify your position. Let them imagine. Let them prepare for 1,000 possibilities and then act in a way they never saw coming. The uncertainty you create amplifies the impact of every decision. Every consequence lands heavier because they did not see it coming. And you? You move calmly, deliberately, without a trace of hesitation. That calm only magnifies their fear. Unpredictability is not chaos. It is strategy. It is discipline. You are deliberate in your timing, precise in your execution, and measured in your restraint. You know when to act and when to wait. Your movements are intentional, yet impossible for others to anticipate. That combination is lethal. That combination commands obedience, respect, and fear. Understand this. The world will try to predict you. The weak will fail. The cautious will falter. And the rest, they will be caught off guard. Every action you take, every enforcement you carry out will reinforce the truth. They cannot control you, they cannot challenge you, and they cannot anticipate you. That is your domain. That is your power. Some people do not listen. Some people do not understand reasoning, logic, or warning. They only understand action. You will not waste your time explaining. You will not negotiate. You will not plead. Your presence, your decisions, your moves, they teach the lesson that words never could. That is how power works. That is how respect is earned. People feel consequences, they internalize outcomes, and only then do they adjust. They only learn when it is too late to argue. Do not be frustrated by their ignorance. Accept it. Some people require experience to understand boundaries. Some people require proof to comprehend authority. And proof comes not through argument, it comes through action. The moment they overstep, misjudge, or challenge, your response must be decisive, precise, final. There is no debate. There is no explanation. That is how you teach without saying a word. That is how influence becomes absolute. Notice how they react. Hesitation, panic, confusion, submission. That is the language they speak, the only language they understand. Let them feel it. Let them confront the consequence of their choice. You are not cruel. You are precise. You are not impulsive. You are measured. Every move is intentional. Every action communicates authority. They respond not to your warnings, but to the reality of your decision. That is the only truth they comprehend. Do not try to persuade them with logic. Do not convince them with reasoning. That is wasted energy. Instead, their consequences deliver the lesson. Their outcomes speak louder than words ever could. The world is full of men who talk and fail. You will be the man who acts and commands. The strongest men do not waste time with explanations. The strongest men establish dominance through immediate, uncompromising action. And everyone else learns or suffers. Understand this. The people who only understand action are the ones you shape most effectively. They become reliable allies, respectful adversaries, or obedient subordinates, depending entirely on how you wield your moves. They cannot misread you if you act clearly. They cannot defy you if your actions are unwavering. And when they finally understand, it is because your authority has already been established, irreversibly. That is the psychology of action. That is how the most dangerous men operate. Emotion is a liability. When you let anger, frustration, or attachment dictate your actions, you lose control. People react to emotion. They calculate, they predict, they exploit it. You will not. Your decisions, your consequences, your enforcement, everything must be devoid of sentiment. That is how authority becomes untouchable. That is how fear becomes respect. Do not justify. Do not explain. Do not negotiate. Every consequence you deliver is a reflection of strategy, not feeling. If someone crosses a boundary, they are met with action, calculated, precise, and final. Your detachment amplifies impact. People feel it immediately. They notice the difference between a man who reacts impulsively and a man who operates with cold inevitability. That distinction is everything. Neutrality does not mean weakness. It means clarity. It means control. You assess the situation, calculate outcomes, and act according to what serves the objective, not what your heart tells you. Hesitation fueled by emotion allows others to predict your behavior. It dilutes your influence. It compromises your position. You cannot afford to be compromised. Every choice must be based on logic, necessity, and leverage. Emotion has no place. Observe how men falter when emotion controls them. They speak too soon, strike too late, apologize unnecessarily. Their words and actions betray uncertainty. You will not be that man. You will strike at the right time, with the right force, for the right reason. You will remain calm, unshaken, and impenetrable. People will feel the weight of your decisions before they even realize why. That is the power of removing emotion. That is the power of control. Understand this. Consequences delivered with detachment are irreversible in effect. People remember not what you said, not what you felt, but what they experienced because of your action. Your silence, your restraint, your cold precision, all communicate authority without argument. Your presence becomes the standard. Your reputation becomes a force of nature. That is how influence is consolidated. That is how fear is earned. That is how the most dangerous men operate. Do not confuse this with cruelty. Detachment is not malice. It is discipline. It is strategy. It is power measured in its purest form. When you act without emotion, the world cannot manipulate you, cannot predict you, and cannot resist the impact of your decisions. That is how consequences speak louder than warnings. That is how men like you shape the world. Dominance is not about shouting. It is not about making noise or forcing attention. True authority is quiet. People notice it before you even speak. They feel it in your posture, in your gaze, in the deliberate way you occupy space. That is power. That is respect. That is fear without a word. You do not need to yell. You do not need to threaten. You act, and the world responds. Do not confuse silence with weakness. Men who raise their voices often do so because they lack control. You will not be one of them. You will speak only when necessary. And when you do, your words carry weight beyond the noise of the room. Every glance, every pause, every controlled movement communicates authority. People follow because they sense control, not because they are told to. Stand straight, move deliberately, speak with purpose. Let your calm unsettle others. Let them struggle to anticipate your moves. Dominance is built on the fear of unpredictability and the certainty of competence. They watch you, measure you, try to understand your limits, and every attempt to define you fails. That failure reinforces your control. That failure ensures respect. That failure builds influence without argument. Let others react. Let them stumble. Let them reveal their intentions while you remain still. You do not need to assert yourself loudly. Your quiet decisiveness is louder than any threat. People fear what they cannot control. Your presence alone creates tension, anticipation, and obedience. They anticipate consequences, and that anticipation enforces compliance without you having to say a word. Understand this. Dominance without noise requires patience, observation, and precision. You do not rush. You do not exaggerate. You do not react emotionally. You allow the world to unfold, and you intervene only when it is necessary. And when you do, it lands with finality. That combination, silence, precision, control, is irresistible. It communicates authority, commands respect, and instills fear. You are not loud. You are inevitable. And that is how the most dangerous men operate. Precision is power. Hesitation, overexposure, and obvious intentions weaken a man. You will act, but never reveal your plan. Every movement must be deliberate, measured, and silent. People should only see the effect of your decisions, never the thought process behind them. That is how dominance is cemented. That is how fear is internalized. They do not need to know your reasoning. They only need to feel the consequences. Do not broadcast your intentions. Do not hint at what you will do. Men who show their cards early are prey. You will operate in shadows, move quietly, and let results speak. Others will speculate, worry, and miscalculate. That miscalculation becomes your advantage. Every action lands stronger when it is unexpected. Every step forward amplifies control when your motives are invisible. That is how you command without explanation. Understand the power of restraint. Acting coldly does not mean moving slowly. It means choosing exactly the right moment to strike and executing without hesitation. The world notices those who act decisively, but they fear those whose timing cannot be predicted. Your calm, your measured presence, your invisible intentions create tension. People will anticipate, overthink, and stumble. That hesitation reinforces your authority. You are in control without ever having to assert it openly. Every encounter is a calculation. Observe your surroundings. Notice how people react. Identify weaknesses without announcing your strategy. Position yourself so that the moment you move, it lands perfectly. Your inaction before the strike is not passivity. It is preparation. Your restraint magnifies the impact. People feel the difference between impulsive reaction and cold, deliberate execution. That difference is lethal. That difference ensures respect. That difference ensures fear. Remember, the strongest men are not those who act loudly, but those who act invisibly. Every consequence they deliver is precise. Every move lands exactly where it must. The world reacts, often too late, because the hand of the decisive is always hidden until it strikes. You'll operate the same way. No explanations, no warnings, no noise. Just results, just consequences, just control. That is cold precision. That is dominance. That is how the most dangerous men operate. Respect is earned through action, not words. But fear, the subtle, controlled kind, is earned through expectations. People fear disappointing you because they understand the consequences even before you intervene. That fear is leverage. That fear ensures obedience. That fear communicates your authority without raising your voice. You will cultivate it deliberately. Do not reward mediocrity. Do not tolerate excuses. People test boundaries. They always do. Let them. Every misstep, every failure to meet your standard must carry weight. Not through anger, not through punishment, through inevitability. When they know failure has consequences, they adjust, they anticipate, they hesitate, they calculate. That hesitation is your advantage. Your presence alone should enforce the standard. Let them feel the weight of your expectations before you speak. Let them notice how precise, disciplined, and untouchable you are. That clarity forces them to rise or falter in your shadow. You do not need to threaten. You do not need to demand. Your expectation is enough. People fear disappointment because they see the consequences silently delivered to others, and they know they could be next. Observe how they react. The nervous glance, the careful movement, the pause before speaking. These are indicators that your authority is recognized. They fear misalignment, hesitation, or error because they understand that action or inaction has already defined boundaries. You are not cruel. You are consistent. You are precise. That consistency creates a standard that is non-negotiable. Understand this. Fear of disappointment is stronger than fear of punishment. It is subtler, sharper, and more enduring. People will adjust their behavior, their speech, and their choices just to avoid letting you down. You do not need to enforce control actively. It enforces itself. And in that control, you are untouchable, unchallenged, and absolute. That is the power of making people fear disappointing you. That is how influence is cemented. That is how respect, obedience, and authority are silently secured. Silence is the loudest message. Most people fill every pause with noise, explanations, excuses. You will not. You will sit, observe, and let your quiet speak. That stillness makes people uneasy. They sense control. They sense inevitability. They do not know what will happen next, and that uncertainty terrifies them. That is power. That is authority. That is dominance without a word. Do not feel the need to explain yourself. Do not justify your presence. People will try to read your intentions. Let them. Let them guess. Let them miscalculate. The more they speculate, the more fear they generate. Fear of the unknown is stronger than fear of action. Your quiet is the instrument that forces them to confront what they cannot control. Notice their reactions, shifting eyes, nervous movements, hesitation. That discomfort is the leverage you hold. It forces compliance, attention, and respect without demand. They will adjust their behavior to your presence alone because silence signals the weight of consequence. No threats are needed. No volume is required. Quiet can terrify more than noise ever could because it is unpredictable, deliberate, and unyielding. Understand this. Your quiet is a tool. When others panic in their own minds, you remain calm, unshaken, calculating. That contrast strengthens your authority. It communicates clarity, inevitability, and finality. Every pause is deliberate. Every silence is a statement. Do not fill it unnecessarily. Let them wonder. Let them feel tension build. That tension enforces your control. It tells them you are in command, that decisions are already made, that the consequences of crossing you are unavoidable. You are not reactive. You are inevitable. Your quiet is the weapon they cannot counter. That is how the most dangerous men operate. That is how presence becomes dominance. That is how fear becomes obedience. All without a single word spoken. People imagine consequences long before they arrive. You will let them. You do not need to announce punishment. You do not need to threaten. Their mind does the work for you. They anticipate, overthink, hesitate, and in that hesitation, you gain control. Fear becomes self-administered. Their imagination amplifies the weight of your authority, and they internalize the lesson before you even act. That is influence. That is power. Do not correct their assumptions. Do not clarify your intentions. Let them speculate. Let them guess. Let them stumble over their own thoughts. Each misstep, each pause, each nervous glance reinforces your control. They cannot predict your timing, your method, or your decision, but they know it will come. That uncertainty shapes behavior, builds respect, and enforces compliance. The strongest men do not explain outcomes. They deliver them. But before the delivery, perception does the work. People fear what they cannot see and what they cannot understand. That fear is magnified when they imagine their own failure, their own consequences. You do not create the fear, they do. You only remain present, controlled, inevitable. Their imagination becomes a weapon you wield without moving a finger. Observe reactions: hesitation, overcompensation, overcompensation, excuses, attempts to impress. All of these are signals that your authority is recognized. You do not need to speak. You do not need to threaten. You only need to exist, to act when necessary, and to let them predict what they fear. In predicting their own punishment, they surrender control to you. They obey without realizing it. They respect without question. Understand this: power lies not in the punishment itself, but in the anticipation of it. Let them think, let them fear, let them miscalculate. When the moment arrives, the impact is magnified, the authority cemented, the lesson irreversible. You do not raise your voice. You do not negotiate. You do not warn. You let the world play into your control while you remain cold, precise, and inevitable. That is how the most dangerous men operate. That is how consequences teach lessons better than words ever could. There is no room for hesitation. When a line is crossed, when a rule is broken, when a challenge is made, you act immediately. Delay is weakness. Delay gives others the chance to recover, to argue, to manipulate. The most dangerous men understand that swift execution eliminates doubt, enforces respect, and ensures compliance. You strike once, precisely, and leave no opportunity for negotiation or debate. That is authority. That is control. That is dominance delivered without warning. Do not announce your intentions. Do not give them a chance to prepare. The moment they misstep, the consequences must be inevitable. Precision is everything. Your actions must land with finality. People must understand instantly that you do not tolerate hesitation, disobedience, or incompetence. This is not cruelty. This is strategy. Every decision, every strike, every enforcement must be calculated, measured, and unavoidable. That is the power of swift execution. Observe the world carefully. Notice who hesitates, who questions, who challenges. Those are the ones who will test your limits. They believe there is room to negotiate or argue. There is none. Their misjudgment is the opportunity you take advantage of. Strike decisively. Strike with precision. Strike in a way that leaves no room for doubt, no room for recovery, and no question of your authority. The impact is immediate, irreversible, and deeply effective. That is how fear is instilled. That is how obedience is ensured. Understand this. The moment is critical. Hesitation costs power. Indecision costs influence. Delay costs authority. Swift execution communicates that your decisions are final, your control absolute, and your presence dominant. People internalize that knowledge immediately. They will adjust their behavior, posture, and strategy to avoid crossing you. That is leverage. That is dominance. That is authority beyond words. Remember, this is not about spectacle. You do not seek recognition. You do not need to justify action. You act coldly, precisely, and without fanfare. The consequences speak for themselves. They land heavily, decisively, and leave a lasting impression. People will remember, not your warning, not your voice, but the reality of what happens when you decide. That is the mark of a man who commands respect, fear, and obedience in silence. That is the way the most dangerous men operate. Final, unyielding. Dependence is weakness. You will make no concessions. You will ask for nothing. You will operate in a way that communicates self-sufficiency and inevitability. That independence is power. That independence is authority. That independence is fear. People observe, they calculate, and they adjust. When they realize you do not need them, they respect you. When they realize you cannot be manipulated, they fear you. Do not compromise. Do not bend. Let others scramble while you remain steady. Your actions, your decisions, your success, they are yours alone. Your autonomy becomes a shield. Your presence becomes a statement. Let them notice. Let them adjust. That adjustment reinforces your authority without a word spoken. Understand this. Reliance invites manipulation. It allows others to dictate terms, to impose consequences, to question decisions. You will not be vulnerable. You will not give them the opportunity. Every move you make is deliberate, measured, and independent. You rely on your judgment, your skill, and your discipline. That self-reliance builds respect. That self-reliance builds fear. That self-reliance establishes control. Observe how people react to a man who needs nothing. They hesitate, they test, they try to influence. That hesitation, that testing, they reveal their intentions. You exploit them not through confrontation, but through detachment. You act without showing need, without asking, without explanation. Your power grows quietly while they scramble, frustrated and uncertain. Remember, showing you do not need anyone is not arrogance. It is clarity. It is control. It is inevitability. People follow, fear, and respect those who are unbound. They align themselves not because they are commanded, but because they see your authority as absolute. They understand your dominance without words, without threats, without warnings. That is the power of self-sufficiency. That is the mark of the most dangerous men. Stand alone. Act alone. Dominate alone. Respect is not demanded. It cannot be begged for, pleaded over, or forced through words. You will not ask for it. You will earn it through action, presence, and unwavering standards. People notice those who carry themselves with authority, who operate with precision, who make decisions without hesitation. Do not justify your actions. Do not explain your rules. Every move you make communicates your standards. People observe, they test, they stumble, and in their reactions, they learn the boundaries they are not allowed to cross. You do not need to raise your voice. You do not need to threaten. Your consistency, your decisiveness, your calm dominance are lessons more powerful than any words could convey. Understand this. Respect thrives under clarity. People are uncertain when standards are vague, when leadership wavers, when authority is questioned. You will never waver. You will never allow confusion to dilute your influence. Every action you take reinforces your expectations. Every consequence you deliver, measured and precise, communicates your control. They learn, not because you explain, but because they experience the reality of your authority. Observe carefully. Hesitation, overcompensation, nervous gestures. These are signals that your presence is understood and respected. You do not reward compliance with praise, nor punish deviation with explanation. The lesson is in the consistency of your standards. People adjust to survive, to align, and to avoid your scrutiny. In that adjustment, respect is cemented, silently, irreversibly. Remember, the most dangerous men do not ask to be respected. They embody it. They command it through every movement, every decision, every silent observation. Presence alone becomes education. Consequences replace conversation. Authority becomes a tangible, undeniable force. You do not need to speak for them to follow. You do not need to announce your rules for them to obey. That is how influence becomes absolute. That is how respect is secured without request. That is how the world bends to the unyielding will of a man who operates without compromise, without explanation, and without hesitation. Your presence speaks before you do. People sense authority, dominance, and inevitability without a word. That is your aura, the silent force that communicates control, expectation, and consequence. You do not need warnings. You do not need explanations. Your aura is enough. It shapes behavior, enforces obedience, and instills fear before action is ever taken. Do not underestimate this power. The world reacts first to energy, to presence, to the unspoken signals you radiate. Stand tall, move deliberately, and exude certainty. Let your eyes, posture, and silence convey intent. People will adjust to your presence. They will pause before stepping forward. They will hesitate to challenge. Their hesitation is your leverage. Their hesitation is your advantage. Understand this. Your aura is built on discipline, precision, and self-control. It is not loud. It is not flashy. It does not require validation. It is consistent, deliberate, and unwavering. Over time, it becomes instinctual in others. Their caution, their respect, their fear are automatic responses to your presence. Observe how people react to you without intervention. Nervous gestures, quickened glances, measured speech, all are signals that your authority is recognized. They respond to your presence, not your words. That is why words are often unnecessary. The stronger your aura, the less you need to explain. The less you speak, the more impact you have. The room, the world, adjusts itself around you. Remember, people fear what they cannot fully understand, what they cannot control, and what they sense is inevitable. Your aura delivers that silently. It enforces standards, teaches respect, and communicates consequences before any action is necessary. It makes you untouchable because the threat is understood, not announced. You do not raise your voice. You do not warn. You do not justify. Your presence, your consistency, your cold certainty. These are warnings in themselves, and those who underestimate it will learn. Always too late. Your aura is the first strike, the permanent message, and the invisible barrier no one dares cross. You do not warn. You do not explain. You act. Consequences arrive silently, inevitably, and irreversibly. People learn through what happens, not through what you say. Your presence communicates authority. Your decisions command respect. Your restraint creates fear. Every action, every pause, every glance enforces dominance without argument. The world adjusts to you, not the other way around. Power lies in control, precision, and inevitability. Those who hesitate, misjudge, or oppose will feel it. Always too late. Decide. Act. Dominate. Let the consequences speak, and let the world catch up to the reality you already own.